Well, hello everybody. Let's whoops, let's turn that off. Well, let's welcome everybody in by name, and then we'll get Catherine Ann to start us off with an attunement. So welcome, Glad, and thank you for the music. And you agreed next week to be here because I won't be able to be here. Catherine Ann and you can work out. Okay, yeah,
Mhm.
thank you. Welcome, Jan. Dieter, glad to have you. And Stephanie, so glad you can make it. Are you going to be reading tonight, Stephanie? Or yeah, okay. Thank you. And Catherine Ann, good making
Yep.
it here. Good to see you. And Sandra, glad you're back. And Iona, Hub, hi. Janet, yay. Charla, good to see you, hon. And Kat, great to be that you're here. Yeah. Well, great. Everybody's in the house, and we'll have Catherine Ann give us her frequency attunement. Then
Okay.
we'll get going. Yeah. Hmm.
Just center in your heart and send gratitude to your heart
Hmm.
and to your soul and to your higher self for always guiding you, inspiring you, and leading you lifetime after lifetime. Just feel that gratitude being sent back to you and ask that during this Zoom call today, you align with the most appropriate and highest level frequencies that are being uh, instigated or being brought forward through the time of Yeshua's initiations and our time, that they are not separate, that one reverberates to the next, back and forth, and that you are the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and that you are the Christ Magdalene in this time, and ask to be more firmly made aware of your participation as a Christ Magdalene, and ask to be made more aware not only of your place, but of your weave of the holy tapestry, asking that it come to you in whatever ways you can receive it. Sending blessings through this tapestry, that you are a thread of this weave to all of creation. And thank all of creation for holding you in this sacred journey. So be it.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you, Catherine Ann.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I have us in the end of chapter 28. Is Glad, is that what you have too? I have a paragraph that starts off in Veneris. Veneris, is that what you have? Okay. So yeah, everybody, chapter, yeah, 28. We get to continue with the direct um, speaking Yeshua to his family and friends, which is us. And I guess he's around 23 years old. It really feels to me like this is the part of his ministry. This, I don't know. I know it's not officially, but I love that the way he's talking to us and everybody in these chapters. So we have a bit more to go on this. A lot more of him talking to his family and friends. All right. Well, let's go ahead, Glad, if you don't mind starting us off with a few paragraphs, and we'll stop and see
I'd
what
be
comes up.
happy to. In Benares, my father introduced me to a tantric master of the sound current and high alchemy practices, who was also a very fine musician. This wise man, a grandson of one of my father's gurus, had become a trusted friend during those years when my father had been in India many years earlier. This teacher took me on as a student and taught me how to hear and follow the infinite inner sound, how to play intricate rhythms upon the tables, and how to strum the many stringed sitar, the tablas, sorry, not tables, tablas. And I learned how the ragas played at different times of day, altered my states of consciousness, and affected my breath, internal organs, absorption of energies and moods. I was apprenticed for a year with this master and worked as well as a craftsman in his household. He was married to 3 women, all of whom were very beautiful and gracious. That year was a time of cultivating my appreciation for aesthetic refinement, applying the subtle nature of life force energy and expressing the nurturing feminine quality of my own soul. While living with this cultured and highly spiritual family, I made the discovery that I need not own anything. Simply by appreciative attention, my requirements and preferences were supplied. In this household were 9 daughters and 13 sons. With one of the older daughters, I felt a great mutual attraction, and with her, I learned the ways of high tantric love. This is a very highly refined science and art for raising and expanding consciousness. I share this with you so that you may understand that I hold sex to be a powerful endowment of our Creator's source. Through discipline and conscious devotion, sex can be a direct path to the true self as an expression of divine love. Sex, however, if expressed through the untransmuted energies of the lower chakras, governed by the animal centers of the unawakened brain and toxic bodily organs, can bring sore affliction that dominates and devours the souls of women and man.
Yeah, good. Let's see what comes up there. There's a lot of interesting things in there.
Yeah.
I don't know if Catherine Ann knows anything about sound current that's capitalized. Have you ever heard of that before?
Not specifically, but I would guess that there is a lot of um, training with sound, because they use sound, light, color, in all of their training and their initiations. And in that chapter in Voice of the Magdalens, they talked about working with Pleiadians and sound, light, and color. So I think that sound healing or the use of sound is, a major tool in their training.
Hmm, very interesting. Yeah, great. Iona, let's see what you have
I recognize, because my parents are from an Indian background, so the tablas and the sitar and the ragas are all in beautiful, integral, ancient musical tradition where they use music and octaves and rhythm. And the ragas, I remember when I was growing up, my father would play morning ragas and evening ragas, and just listening to them and not really understanding, but they're very beautiful. And they definitely, without knowing anything, they evoke a certain energy field. Depending on when you listen to them, there's a lot of spiritual intelligence in that music. So it's lovely to know that Yeshua partook and enjoyed that as well.
Nice. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, Jan.
I would just like to add that that today already sound is being used for healing. When I had my cataract surgery about 8 or 9 years ago, the way they busted up my cataracts was through sound. And so it's coming in. It's not what we are talking about here, but it's on its way. So I just think that's great. Loved it. And it was a very easy, painless surgery too. That it was great.
And Jan, you could hear the sound. It was like
I could hear the sound, and the Dr. Perkins, talked me through it. So it was really fascinating. So
interesting.
yeah.
I guess it might have been a little confusing to see the word tantric master with sound current, but I guess he was a tantric master and a musician, so I don't think they had necessarily had to do with each other. So I thought that was maybe a little confusing. And also high alchemy practices. Yeah, let's see what Kat has.
Earlier this week, I was listening to a video with Robert Edward Grant, another one, and he mentioned that he had found a way of like recalibrating musical instruments, like tuning them in a very, very different way. And he had put out a paper about it, and he got 2 requests for interviews. One was from the Vatican, and one was from the Dalai Lama. And he and his friend Nassim Harriman, Nassim Harriman, I don't know. I think he's probably the Einstein of our generation, but that's me. And probably Robert Edward Grant also. They went over to talk with the Dalai Lama, who was very fascinated. And he said that before he was exiled, I think he was about 12, I know it was 1959, but I think he was like 12 when he got exiled. He'd already read quite a few papers that talked about this type of sound work. And he was very fascinating to find that it's like being discovered or rediscovered. And he said, Robert Edward Grant said that it was only the second time that the Dalai Lama invited anybody to stay over for lunch. And he invited them for lunch. He wanted to keep talking. They had a half-hour interview, and after 2.5 hours, he invited them for lunch so he could keep talking even more about this new sound. So it's coming. We're here, and I mean, we're in the new paradigm, and I think we, if nothing else, just appreciate the fact that all these things are unfolding, and whatever each of us, like Catherine Ann was saying, to bring us in this time, we all have our ways, and some people it's sound, they're sharing that with us, and the rest of us sharing other things. So I thought that might be interesting too.
Yeah. Thank you, Kat. Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah. That Tom Kenyon's got that Mary Magdalene, I don't know what he calls it. It's a Mary Magdalene CD of music about. So that's it. I'm sure that has to do with this actually. That's interesting. So yeah, I'm really interested in this stuff. So I wrote down sound current to see what I come up with. Anybody else on that first paragraph? Okay, good. Glad.
I've been aware of I guess he's a chiropractor, but has done a tremendous amount of work with sound healing, musical sound healing. His name is Dr. Jeffrey Thompson, Thompson. And he's doing some conferences at something quantum consciousnesses through sound. So anyway, if anybody's interested in that name and want to follow up on it, that they can. I actually purchased some of his music, and they have for different kinds of pain and healing situations. He's got a whole different, and they're quite good.
Nice.
And then of course there's the rife frequencies and all of that too. So that's a whole nother area.
Oh, thank you, Glad. So on that second paragraph, I just had a couple things. Anybody have anything underlined that they just want to just reread? Right about in the middle of the paragraph, after a comma, he says, and expressing the nurturing feminine quality of my own soul. I thought that was really cool. Yeah. So that's just good to know. And then just below that, he says, I made the discovery that I need not own anything. Simply by appreciative attention, my requirements and preferences were supplied. That is really interesting. That yeah, that goes against America's great work and accumulate. So that was cool. Anybody have anything they want to share on the second or third paragraph? The third paragraph had some interesting stuff about his tantric experiences, which I'm sure Christianity would not want to talk about. To think that our Yeshua had, actually, they don't even want to own that he had wives, so I'm sure they wouldn't want to hear about this either. So I was glad to hear about it, though. I'm glad to hear that he had some really good things to say about that. Yeah. All right. Any other comments on these three paragraphs? All right, then. Let's go ahead to the fourth, fifth, and maybe sixth paragraph. I got a lot underlined in there. Stephanie, you'd be next on the list if you're okay with reading.
Jealousy, lust, avarice. I don't know what that is. Rage, guilt, shame, abuse, and degradation. Degradation can sweep the innocence of the sexual flow into tortured paths of self-judgment and endless rounds of karmic restitution. In order to become a high initiate who masters all energy through its rightful use, one must confront this great creative force within oneself, together with all the genetic and soul memory connected with it. During the wondrous years in Benares, I came to know myself like my parents and grandparents did before me, as a master of the most beautiful and powerful, refining, initiatory energies. Let me read that again. I came to know myself like my parents and grandparents did before me, as a master of these most beautiful and powerful, refining, and initiatory energies. We also learned and practiced body postures, the pranayama, conscious breathing. Prana, how do you say that?
Yeah, pranayama. Yeah,
Pranayama,
Mm-hmm.
conscious breathing, and the cleansing of the mind and body. We use mantras, words of power, and mudras, hand gestures that activated the body's energy circuits, and experienced how to reach different levels of
Samadhi.
samadhi,
Samadhi, yeah.
awareness of the absolute through many forms of meditation. Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, one more, if you don't
Okay.
mind.
I learned that even my body is consciousness, which paradoxically holds the entire universe within it. By my using it as an intricate map, I could locate, communicate with, direct, restore, enliven, remove, and rebuild every inward and outward reflection of my consciousness. I also came to know that I was sovereign unto myself, so long as I was aligned and attuned to my omnipotent creator source, my mighty I am. I realized that I was free and not dependent upon another. Yet, how lovely and empowering are relationships nurtured by the heart when we know that we are all flowers within the garden of the beloved, who gives life equally to all its creation.
Very well read, Stephanie. Good job.
Thank you.
Let's back up and look at this. There's some really good stuff in here. Let's see if anybody has something to share first before I keep going. How about that first paragraph Stephanie read? Okay, good, Jan. Yeah.
What came up for me was when it brought up pranayama, because when I studied remote viewing, which is moving your consciousness to a remote place, and you don't know, it's a blind target, so you don't know where you're going. But I studied under Dr. Courtney Brown at Farsight Institute, and two things he required before you did a remote viewing session. One was meditation. The second was pranayama. And so it is really, really powerful to study that.
Yeah. Yeah, pranayama is just a word. What's Sanskrit or some? It's just breathing, right? I mean, it's just
It's a
conscious
form
breathing.
of breathing, and there are a couple of different kinds that I'm certainly not an expert on it, but
Yeah.
it really did help to be able to move your consciousness to this blind target. You didn't know where you were going. So
Oh,
I
wow.
just found it very interesting that that was
Wow.
included.
That's a little different, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Iona.
I love this section because it shows that, you know, what we see as Christianity today doesn't really reveal the richness of what Yeshua really learned himself. And some of this was new to him, right? So he was learning how to use his whole body to raise his level of consciousness. And that's not really talked about, I don't think anyway, in Christianity, but that's where we learn about the chakras. Like the chakras are all different brains within our body, and yet we only really talk in the West about the brain up here. And sometimes we talk about the heart's intelligence, but mostly we're talking about this. So Yeshua unlocked all of this and this was behind his teachings. And it's beautiful because he really learned to respect the part that the body has to play in our consciousness, in our awakening, and how we too have learned to honor our bodies as being such valuable instruments for our consciousness and our evolution, and not to ignore them and to take good care of them because they are important. And so I really love that he goes into this in such detail and shares this with us.
Yeah, Iona, you're referring to that third paragraph that Stephanie read. Would you mind rereading that third paragraph? I learned.
Yeah, happy to. I learned that even my body is consciousness, which paradoxically holds the entire universe within it. By my using it as an intricate map, I could locate, communicate with, direct, restore, enliven, remove, and rebuild every inward and outward reflection of my consciousness. I also came to know that I was sovereign unto myself, so long as I was aligned and attuned to my omnipotent creator source, my mighty I am. I realized that I was free and not dependent upon another. Yet, how lovely and empowering are relationships nurtured by the heart, when we know that we are all flowers within the garden of the Beloved, who gives life equally to all its creation.
Thank you. You know, being with you guys together for all this book so far and learning how Anna was a master of her own cell regeneration makes me realize I can work with my body. I have permission to work with my body. And the other day, I had something on my lip. It was kind of like it felt. I knew it was from the sun, but it wasn't healing. I'm like, oh no! I was thinking cancer words, and I really just went into myself and just really pictured all these cells that might have been kind of being in chaos. I just pictured them all solidifying and finding a place to settle down. And honestly, it went away in a few days. And this reading these together with you guys is making me realize we have more control over our body than I thought before. So Anna is giving me permission to really self-heal and just have that relationship with my body that I haven't had before. So anyway, that was an experience I had last week that I just thought came directly from our working together with Anna. Anybody? Yeah, Catherine Ann.
I'm not muted. Oh, okay. Um, we forget, especially when we've been so immersed in the limitations of Christianity, with the way Anna shares through these books and Yeshua. It's such a full, expansive, rounded training, so much of it based in Eastern thought and Eastern religion that Christianity has made of the devil, and goes on and on about how all of this stuff is pagan and it's, because they don't want the populace to become empowered and to, have self-discovery. So it's part of the whole suppression of the divine feminine. If you think of all of this, it's part of the divine feminine. It's been so repressed and suppressed, so people never discover their own inner power and ability, which is what all of these high tantric, teachings and frequency and sound and light and all of that stuff is teaching the dimensions of reality in a completely different way than Christianity or the church is allowed. So that's one of the things about the book, why it's so new, I think, for a lot of people, is because they've been taught that that's all evil, and they have to be gradually introduced to, what this really is that's being offered to them out of the realm of the usual Christian teaching. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And how about that first sentence that Iona just read? I learned that even my body is consciousness.
mhm.
That's an interesting statement, which paradoxically holds the entire universe within it. That's that's a big sentence. Wow.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I'll just
Yeah.
share, if I
Yeah.
can, a little
Please.
story. Um, I've had times with a lot of pain in my body, and I had a reading once. This was years and years and years ago. And it was kind of hard for me to accept at first, but she said, you were present at the creation of the planet, and you had, how did she say it? You had a special relationship with Mother Earth, and that whatever was going on the planet, you would feel in your body, and it would give you like places, like wherever the pain or issue was, you go into that pain, that place, and you see where you're being guided to do work on Mother Earth. And I had a lot of ongoing chronic pain in my upper left abdominal quadrant, and they told me that was the Middle East when I went in. And so for um, about a year, I would almost every day go in and do this work. I mean, you have no idea if you're really effectively doing anything or not, but I was
Mhm.
consciously doing it. And that's exactly what they're talking about, that the whole
Yeah.
universe is mapped within your physical embodiment, and you can
Wow.
use it to tune in and see where it leads you, and where it's reflected in the external universe.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, glad 1 second. But what you're saying is what Course of Love is saying too, is it's all a relationship. And
Yeah.
so because of working with you guys and Anna, I realized, you know what, if my lips wanting some attention, I just imaged it as whatever chaos is going on in there. I imaged it all just
Mhm.
settling down and being whole again. And it was a great experience. And whether it worked or not, I had a relationship with my lip in this case, but it's the relationship that matters. And I think we're breaking the
Mhm.
cycle of
Yeah.
giving it to somebody else, giving it to a doctor. And I'm just loving that she's training me to work with my own stuff. Let's go with Glad, and then we'll get to you, Sandra, next.
Well, at the referral of some of you guys, I've just finished listening to Mateus Stefano, Journey of Remembering, and he has this whole two-season series, literally, where he is following guidance to go to different places, specifically on the planet, to heal the consciousness. But obviously, he's healing his own consciousness at the same time, and coming into all sorts of revelations and discovery. But you can watch him looking at how the pyramids are a key point of alignment for the whole planet, and how he follows that alignment all the way up into England, into Avalon, as he calls it, and up through all the standing stones. And it was really wonderful to listen to him. I don't normally relate to that kind of symbolic shamanistic approach, but it was lovely to experience with him the shifts that were occurring within him. There were a few moments. I think there's one when he was sitting on next to the lake, the Salt Lake, and an Indian spirit came to him, and oh my God, I really felt it. It was really wonderful. So it's a fun thing to look at, especially for those of us who are looking at, oh, maybe their trips somewhere in the future, because he follows a whole line through up, and how he's talking about how the emphasis is changing from the northern hemisphere, which has been the masculine, and it's now being redirected to the southern hemisphere, and that it's going to happen when the poles realign. So
Wow,
interesting
interesting.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Thank you, Glad.
Yeah.
All right, Sandra.
You're on
You're
you're mute.
you're still muted, yeah.
Sorry.
There it is.
I just wanted to reflect on what you said, Catherine, and that, yeah, I just feel like I've had just that embodied experience growing up in that the sort of the suppression and repression and depression of a lived experience of that within my Christian upbringing. And the thing that started to shift me was realizing I needed to just come back into my body. And that was like an intuitive thing. And yeah, for many years, I was, I think, applauded and celebrated and supported and affirmed in being in my head and knowledge and gaining more knowledge and living out from that and performing in that, which, you know, I was very good performing within that space. You know, just having all the self-taught knowledge, or, you know, and everything was outside of myself. So I was realizing that there was no sense of this intuition. There was no sense of this, and yeah, as you said, like the body was viewed as evil or something that you had to shut down in a sense. And yeah, so it's so liberating to be shifting out from that. And every time I find myself going through that coping pattern, which as a child, you know, you learn how to cope within the space, the arena that you're given. I always go back into my body. And so reading this is just beautiful. And I love that, you know, to resonate with it, that our body is a consciousness, and also leads us to knowing that the universe is contained within it. So it's so expansive and yeah, beautiful. And I feel like our body, as we come to that, then it sort of informs our minds, doesn't it? Instead of the other way around. So it's a very different approach.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Sandra. I love what you were talking about, the masculine, feminine in that terms, because to me, relationship or relational is feminine. And we're talking about having a relationship with our bodies, right? We're actually can communicate and talk to and image things going on. That's relational. It's very feminine. Yeah, doesn't it seem like going to doctors and getting information and all that is masculine? It just seems like to me. So I just appreciate the relational aspect. Yeah, thank you. All right, good, Charlotte. Let's hear from you.
Yeah, it deeply resonates and is something that I'm still very much working with, because when we're handed not to trust our bodies, and then we're handed not only not to trust them, but they're inherently evil, we learn to disassociate. And it's interesting because what led me out of church and the confines of suppression was my body. And specifically, it was my breath. I would lose my breath and I would not physically be able to breathe. And talking about the pranayama and the conscious breathing, it's really fascinating that breathing is what kind of led me back into the experience of being embodied in my body. And it's not until we're in our bodies that we can truly experience the all. And yeah, I mean, even still now, when my body has a pain, like my subconscious programming meets it with fear rather than a loving acceptance of communication of my needs. But I'm working with it, and it's a practice. And yeah, like I had previously have gone straight to the fear of death, gloom, doom, like cancer, or would be my first thought, not my What is my sacred vessel communicating with me? What do I need? What is this universe within me asking of me?
Yes.
And it's a beautiful unfolding process. And again, the wisdom so deeply inherent in my body is what reveals the divinity for me in the consciousness, because my body is so wise. She has done incredible things. And now that I'm 44, I hear many of my peers criticizing their body, criticizing their appearance, criticizing the functionality, criticizing age, whereas I feel like I am finally liberated within my body, and all I want to do is express through movement and breath. And it's a beautiful discovery of curiosity of me within this body. And I love my body for all its, these are my witness of all the smiles I've smiled, and the laughter and the tears. And yeah, like I love the way my 12-year-old daughter like slaps my thighs and appreciates my body and loves the way it wobbles and does things. And she has no reference point of me going, oh, I'm fat, or, we laugh at our beautiful bodies. And it's just this, it's so powerful and it's so profound. And I long for my peers who are beginning to do things like Botox and to embrace and love, and we know that we can breathe life force energy into the invigoration and wholeness that we are. So this is truly powerful. And to hear that Yeshua practiced this is, I think, such a fundamental missing piece of that Christian puzzle that is vitally needed to be put back into the conversation and experience of it all. Yeah.
Wow. Beautiful, Charlotte. Wow. What you really described a relationship with body. And you know what dawned on me when you were speaking is part of ending the separation by joining with ourself. Wow, what a trip. Beautiful. Thank you. So this, I kind of want to reread the paragraph before that. No, two paragraphs before that one. It's a little dicey, so I'm just gonna reread it. It's just avarice. I looked it up, Stephanie. It's like greed, avarice, rage, guilt, shame, abuse, and degradation can sweep the innocence of the sexual flow into tortured paths of self-judgment and endless rounds of karmic restitution. That was a lot right there. Wow. Self-judgment. I think that's what we've been talking about. Wow. Okay. In order to become a high initiate who masters all energy through its rightful use, one must confront this great creative force within oneself, together with all the genetic and soul memories connected with it. Wow. Whew. So there's a lot standing in the way, I mean, that's a big list of personal work to see what is our blocks, right? What about all these things? Jealousy, lust, avarice, rage, guilt, shame, and abuse. Are we allowing them to block, or are we going in there looking at that stuff? It says pretty clearly says it can sweep the innocence of the sexual flow into tortured paths of self-judgment. Wow. Anyway, I just thought that was powerful paragraph. Anybody have any comments on that paragraph? Yeah. And the soul memories connected with it. Wow. Okay. All right. Is that a hand, Sandra? Okay, I'd love to hear from you.
Sorry, I keep forgetting where the hand signal is. Just a question. I was wondering if what you just read, in order to become a high initiate who masters all energy through its rightful use, one must confront this great creative force with oneself, together with all the genetic and soul memories connected with it. I was pondering, is that actually what Yeshua has done for the whole of humanity? So that he's done the initiation for us. Is that, am I thinking that, yeah, has anyone got anything to comment on that?
Well, that's, just one thing that's coming up for me is, I don't know if it was this book that said he did not die for our sins, but he did die for our suffering so that we could have a different choice on suffering. And it seems like this paragraph has something to do with that. Jealousy, lust, avarice, rage, guilt, and shame, that's suffering. That's internal suffering. I think he's here for that reason, to release us. I personally think he's here to release us from all of this shame stuff that might be collective or personal. And I agree with what you just said, Sandra. I think his initiations, personally, I think it was for everybody. He might have done his initiations. Yeah, Catherine Ann, please.
I really feel that it's not the Christian teaching that he did it for us. I mean, my perception of that teaching is so many Christians think, well, he died for our sins, or he went and did it for us, so then we don't have to do any work on our own. And I'm thinking that that isn't the definition of what he did. He was the model showing us that these things weren't taboo, that they're part of the ascension process. They're part of the awakening process, and they're part of the learning of the right use of energy. And that you have to address all of these things that are connected to all of the guilt and the shame and the avarice and whatever. And then all of the restrictions and judgment about your body being an unholy temple, basically. He's teaching that everything, including sex, is a high tantric act, and that he, in my opinion, was demonstrating that not only was it not taboo, but you need to master and get the flow of energy of all of these things. So he was there as the model, and that showing people that it's okay to go into these areas, but it's also something they need to free up and free that energy flowing within yourself. So I just always keep coming back that he's demonstrating it to us.
Yeah, beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's a very much of an inside job. And that's the course of love, is saying it over and over and over. It's not outside, it's inside. And this paragraph seems to be pointing to that. We have our own inward journey to look at these things. What is our blocks? Yeah. Nice. Anybody else? Yeah, glad.
I have the sense that because of the density and the frequency that was occurring, that was building up to the time that he actually experienced the crucifixion and resurrection, all that we're reading about prepared him for. That there were very few on the planet who had been able to actually come into an experience of unity a recognition that there is a oneness that we all share in as an experience. And that, I mean, it's my own belief and sort of experientially that the crucifixion and the resurrection, in a sense, brought that atonement, that one-ment into the human consciousness as an experience that we all could reach. So that this, what we do through all of our work is a recognition that that's already happened within us, that we come into an experience of who we've always been and what the truth is, because there was a extremely powerful force that occurred in that moment in his resurrection that reunited our consciousness in a way that it hadn't been before. That's my belief, that's my experience, but I just thought I'd bring that up because I think I don't want to underestimate at all what he accomplished, because that was an extremely energetically powerful experience that was given us. However we interpret that, and I know there are many, many, many ways that people interpret the resurrection. Some say he never actually died and he was just being healed. I mean, there are all sorts of things that I've heard, but just my own experiences that I've had my own recognition of the truth of what he went through. And it does require me to follow my own initiate path for me to discover that and experience it on a regular basis.
Nice. Thank you. It just keeps feeling, I said it already a bunch of times, doesn't it just feel like relationship with self? This is like,
Yes.
this is
Yes.
what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's not outward. It's not even
Yeah.
him on the cross. It's inward. He's asking us
Yeah.
to go inward, have a
Right.
relationship with yourself. Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm saying, is that it involves me to go into myself
Yeah.
and not expect it come from outside.
Yeah.
That higher power, who I am, is within me. It is who I really am.
Yeah.
And my whole path has been to discover, to remember who I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. And isn't Anna giving us more and more permission all the time to go
Yeah.
deeper into this mystery
Yeah.
of who we are as a body and who we are as our true identity? Yeah. Wow. We're in good hands. Well, that was a big 3 paragraphs. Thanks for exploring that with me. Y'all ready to move on to the next 3? Okay, so that would be Sandra. You'd be up next if you don't mind. I was grateful. Yeah, and you're muted still. There you go.
I was grateful that our Father took us into such a school where life's important matters were practiced liberally with wise, conscious, and compassionate discipline. I will invite James to share his experience later, although we differ in our philosophies toward the physical plane, and I feel my brother's judgment of me from time to time. And I am glad for my experience and our Father's support of us both. So our father, Joseph, assisted us to follow the path he had trodden long ago when he was preparing himself to be our father. However, it was not only for the sake of being our father that he had gone to India in his youth. Clearly, it was to attain mastery so that he could be of the greatest service to humanity. When my time was complete with my master teacher, Guru, and my tantric lover, our father then led us to a village in the lower Himalayas. My brothers, James, Joseph the younger, and Uncle Jacob accompanied us for a year, and then they returned to Benares. Joseph had spent most of his days with our Uncle Jacob in the home of one of our host's physicians who recognized my brother's inherent healing gifts. So it was that James, Joseph, and Uncle Jacob later returned to the great temple complex. James continued his studies in the library. Joseph began his formal Ayurvedic medical training. Knowing that we were in good hands, Uncle Jacob prepared to journey to many other sacred places in India. Reviewing our experiences, I now realize that our father knew more than he was willing to share with us at that time. At any rate, well before taking his departure from the earth plane, he carefully prepared us for our first meeting with the one called Babaji. That encounter, the first among many, would forever transform our lives, as you will come to see. After we have had some refreshments, which my beautiful mother has prepared, I shall continue my story.
Very nice. Well, before we go on, let's see what might come up. You know, I have to go back a little bit. That word samadhi, I've heard it a bunch, but I don't use that word. But it says in parentheses, awareness of the absolute. I love that we're doing that together. That's what I think we're doing together. Okay, let's see what we have on these last 3 or 4 paragraphs. Anything to reread or comment on? How about the last sentence of the second paragraph that Sandra read? Clearly, it was to attain mastery so that he, Joseph the father, could be of greatest service to humanity. What a great perspective that is, to be trained and have mastery to actually serve humanity. What a concept. So glad to see y'all bringing it back home, reminding us what we're really doing here. Yeah. Okay, good. Iona.
Well, it was actually the sentence I was looking for, and you found it, because I love that reminder of mastery, because at the end of the day, we cannot be of service when we don't have that mastery, because otherwise we're too caught up in our own tights and gummings and goings and so forth. And I think our understanding of mastery has changed so much now. Whereas below it, mastery may have kind of inadvertently meant somehow suppressing or suppressing something. We now know that mastery is about integrating and be able to be with while being able to serve. And that's very different than old ideas of mastery, at least that I had, which was like, don't express negative emotions, or, don't do this, or don't feel this, or don't feel that. Is very, very, through all the readings we've done, and understanding that mastery is actually allowing all of that to occur, and at the same time having mastery over it. So I love that sentence. Clearly it was his father had come also on these journeys to attain mastery so that he could be of the greatest service to humanity. I mean, it's beautiful. I love that.
Thank you, Iona. Yay, Janet. Let's hear from you.
One of the sentences that dropped open for me was the although we differ in our philosophies towards the physical plane, I feel my brother's judgment of me from time to time. Be interesting to know what James and Yeshua's different philosophies are. I'm guessing that that's coming up a future in the, I will share his experience later, but it sounds interesting to me that they've got different philosophies. I'd love to see them and understand them and know the differences.
What
I
I
think it's
got
a little
with
flag for the future.
yeah, that'd be great. I think also brothers just have to argue about something, everything. They are brothers.
Okay.
But yeah, like maybe it'll come up later. We'll have to remember to look for that. Anybody else? Oh yeah, Sandra.
I was just wondering if that's James, the same James that wrote the James letter in the New Testament.
That's
Does
a
anyone
great
know?
question. I don't personally know. Does anybody know about that? It seems like all these people are the disciples, right? It seems like. Does anybody have any information on that? Oh, yeah, Charlotte.
I just remember when I first read it, being struck because we grew up with these biblical characters and how they interacted. I think it is Sandra. And I think what struck me too is to Janet was that in Voice of the Magdalens, Mariana comes back to Ephesus or whatever, or a couple of those places to seek out James and to talk to him because he is a little bit different. I think he aligns more with Peter and some of those apostles. But I don't know. We'll see. It's been a while since I read it, so it's all a nice unfolding again. But I think it could be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great comment. I think that makes sense. Yeah, thank you. Y'all ready to get into Baba G? Yeah. All right then. So that would be Iona, if you're willing to read. Give us a
It's
few
one of my
paragraphs.
favorite chapters, so yes. Love this chapter. Yeshua meets Babaji. Later that evening, Yeshua gathered us together again and said, "Now, my beloved ones, I will share more fully about our experiences with the great master, Babaji. You have heard of him through my grandmother Anna and my grandfather Joachim. My father's words concerning Babaji were few. I did not know why my father spoke so little of this one. Yet, when we met face to face at the abode of one of his disciples, I began to understand. This great master, who is known as the immortal yogi, appeared to be a young man in his 30s who had clear brown eyes and long black hair. So powerful were the energies that emanated from his presence that I could barely maintain my conscious state. When I saw my father go to him and kiss his feet, I began to see my father in a new and revealing light. Babaji placed his hands upon my father's head and slowly lifted it so that they could look into each other's eyes. Tears spilled from my father's eyes as a golden light spread throughout the room. Soon I began to tremble, as did my brothers James and Joseph the younger. We sat very still. Slowly the heavens opened to our inner vision, revealing rank upon rank of angels, masters, and saints. Next, we saw a corridor of light open to our view, and we were invited to follow Babaji. By this time, I was aware that Babaji's form had changed into the most luminous body I had ever beheld. Directly before us was the sun, a radiant orb of intense white light. The central energy began to spin, gathering us into its vortex. Then we were taken into the very center of our solar system sun. There, we were greeted by beautiful solar beings who said they were known as Helios and Vesta. Shall I pause there, or would you like me to read some more?
I think we could do one more.
One more,
Yeah.
okay. After we had been taken into and had merged with the sun, we were returned back to our bodies. Babaji smiled and assured us that this was the first of many such journeys, utilizing our sun as an interdimensional portal. Turning directly towards me and raising his hand, Babaji beckoned me to come forward. My father took my place beside my brothers and my uncle Jacob as I went forward to lie prostrate before Babaji, my hands upon his bare feet. Communicating telepathically, he then gave me the Maha Mantra, I am the light. Gently, he laughed and touched a finger to the crown of my head. As if it were a lightning bolt, a piercing light shot through Babaji's fingers, striking me mute. So I remained for many weeks.
That was quite the encounter.
What a power.
Yeah. All right. Anything coming up? I'm going to reread the last sentence of the second paragraph. Then we were taken into the very center of our solar system's sun. There we were greeted by beautiful solar beings who said they were known as Helios and Vesta. That's pretty cool. So it gives a whole new look at our solar system. So wow, it's not what I thought it was. So there's beings, gods and goddesses. Wow. Yeah, Jan, let's see what you have for us.
Where it refers to the sun as an interdimensional portal, that reminded me of what I've heard Archangel Michael say through Rana Zane. And he says that we each need to spend 15 minutes a day in the sun. And he says, do it before 10 or after 4 o'clock. But he says, and so that makes sense to me now because we're receiving that energy and information from that portal. And so I think I'll start doing that.
Yeah, definitely. I've been doing that my whole life. And of course, the medical industry wants to make that wrong.
Yeah. Well, I burn easily, so I kind of
Yeah.
avoided the sun, but I think early in the morning, that's fine.
Yeah. No, lately I've been just sticking my face up in the sun and just feeling like a relationship with, an energy. It's obviously an energy and it's really direct. I mean, there's no question when you're connecting and when you're not connecting. So yeah, it's been my practice for a long time. I'm just getting more permission to do that more regularly. Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you, Jan. Okay, Iona.
Just a little bit. I was just looking up Helios and Vesta. So Helios is the god of this solar system and abides in the very heart of the physical sun. With his twin flame Vesta, he serves to represent the Godhead to those evolving on the planets orbiting the sun.
Thank you. Yeah. Wow. Now this book's opening everything wide open to me. It's not what it was before. Yeah, everything's changing. Let's go with Sandra and then we'll get to Glad.
I recently came across something that it's just a visual representation, but it really sometimes we forget, and it's good to be reminded. But it was just a picture of our solar system, and for most of humanity, we've viewed our solar system like, when you look at a picture of it, you've got the sun in the middle, and then the planets just circling around it, sort of on a flat plane. But the reality is, and they had to use a video, or maybe like it would be a computer-generated image to reveal what's actually happening. And it's beautiful to see it, but you see this sun propelling through space at whatever, you know, I think it's millions of miles per hour or and the planets are doing this spiraling dance around it as it's just like, so that it's creating this vortex. So it's not this flat plane, like just circular space. This is just like everything is, so even like we're already spinning around the sun, you know, it's already happening, and it's creating this, like the image created like this, almost this infinity symbol going around just this sun.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, there's so many ways to see that, like, and it's just a beautiful thing to contemplate, isn't it? You know, that's the reality of, you know, just how our solar system is working within our universe, but that's what's happening inside us as well. That's how we, you know, it's that connect. And then this just brings that right back, that the sun is, you know, we are vortexing around these these great beings.
Wow.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you, Sandra. It's like it's an energy dance. I mean, I love the way you were describing that, because it's all dancing. It's all energy dancing. Yeah, and so when I do stick my face in the sun, even for just a minute or two, I have a relationship with a powerful energy. It's beautiful. Wow. Great. Thank you, Sandra. Let's see. Yeah, glad.
What I love about this book, probably more than anything else, is it's confirming a lot of these sort of what a moment ago I would call really out there stuff.
Mhm.
As but I've been listening to for a while now these transmissions called the Elohim Quantum Creations, and one of the transmissions actually took us energetically into the sun. And I would, you know, at the time I was thinking, well, this is kind of interesting, but it's probably metaphorical. But that's not what this is telling us. That what we're actually experiencing is the heart and soul of our solar system, and that it is a consciousness as well, and that we can travel, and we can have, as you say, Thomas, a communication and a relationship with that, not just as something that's giving us heat, but literally a consciousness that is literally in concert with our Mother Earth, which also has consciousness. So it's beautiful. It's a beautiful confirmation for me, and I do recommend those transmissions. They're really quite lovely.
Nice. Nice. Thank you, Glad. Yeah. You know, this chapter is about Babaji, and my very first even seeing that word was Sophia's Code.
Yeah.
And Iona, if you don't mind grabbing that book before we end up tonight, maybe you can just read that one paragraph, but we'll keep it for the end. That's the first time I ever got introduced to Babaji. So let's continue our reading dance here. Let's see if we can get Janet's voice in here, and maybe a couple of paragraphs. Yeah, we're running out of time. Maybe 2 paragraphs, and try to get other people's voice in here too.
Where are we starting?
James,
Joseph,
yes.
Joseph and I?
Yeah. Yes, please. Yeah.
Thank you. James, Joseph, and I, together with our father and our uncle Jacob, remained with Babaji for a full year. Having experiences I'm informed from within that I am to hold in my heart. After the year had passed, Babaji told us that it was time for James and Joseph the Younger to return to the temple in Benares. There, Joseph would continue his Ayurvedic studies, and James's path would unfold among the monks at the great library within the temple complex, where he would abide until it was time for us to return home. Uncle Jacob was asked to accompany them, resume his studies with James, and prepare for travelling to the other sacred sites. After my brothers and Uncle Jacob left, Babaji became mysteriously quiet. My father and I had few interactions with him physically, but on the inner planes, we were constantly together. We spent most of our days in meditation, eating little food, bathing in the ice-cold water, and tending a small garden. We slept very little. Then one night when the moon was full in May, my father and I were called on the inner plains to attend a gathering within a sacred valley high in the upper Himalayas. There, we experienced our bilocated bodies coalescing to stand around an altar. A chalice and a bowl were on the altar. Behind the altar stood Gautama Buddha and one who announced that he was called Maitreya Buddha, a representative of a lineage of energies called the Cosmic Christ.
Can you do that last sentence again, please, Janet? Just that last sentence.
I feel like it should be there we experienced, actually,
Okay, go ahead.
if that's all right.
Yeah, please do.
There, in the high Himalayas, we experienced our bilocated bodies coalescing to stand around an altar. A chalice and a bowl were on the altar. Behind the altar stood Gautama Buddha and one who announced that he was called Maitreya Buddha, a representative of a lineage of energies called the Cosmic Christ.
That's wonderful.
Well, he certainly got to hang out with some dudes, didn't he?
Yeah.
It's
He,
great.
he attracted some heavyweights, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Any comments on those two paragraphs? Oh, okay, Stephanie.
I find it interesting that he talks about the full moon in May, which now we celebrate as Wesak.
Mm.
The full moon in May is Wesak every May, which is about the enlightenment of the Buddha and other ascended masters. Come to the Himalayas. That's where it's held.
Wow.
Hmm.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So we still celebrate that and we can still remember. Yeah. Nice. Let's see here. So Charlotte, I would love to get your voice in here. How about one paragraph at least? Let's try one paragraph. I got a lot of this underlined, so let's see what comes up here.
As I looked, my very core melted. I wept. The door of my heart flew open as if all eternity revealed itself. Through the door of my heart, a gentle, clarifying wind blew, transforming my being. Then I was told telepathically that I must bring my physical body to this valley where I was to enter a monastic community far removed from the world. My father turned to me and took my hands, pressing them to his lips. Tears flowed. Our hearts merged as we went outside, walked off a distance, and lay beside one another upon the snow. When we awoke, we noted that the snow had melted from the great heat that abided in us. All around us, in a circle, 12 feet in circumference, were white alpine flowers growing in an emerald field of fine cropped grass. They gave forth the sweetest perfumed scent, which filled our nostrils and nurtured our lungs.
Yeah, thank you. What do you think of that one, Charlotte? Anything you want to reread or any comments? It was kind of he was
Powerful.
emotional. Say it
Yeah,
again.
it's very powerful.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. For him to be emotional, I could feel the intensity of the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, so Joseph, it sounds like he was physically there, but we've all talked about this already. He was not physically there. He didn't go to India this trip. So all of this is happening in a bilocating or a metaphysical way, which is beautiful too, right? It shows me that all this is possible. These full relationships, these full experiences are happening quasi physically. I don't know. Wild. Oh, good, Kat. We get to hear from you. Love to get your voice in here as we're running out of time.
It actually said that he was bilocating, so he was there physically. And
Oh.
I'm wondering if the reason the tears, because Joseph would know or would have known, it said that Jesus was going to be there for quite some time. He was being directed telepathically to enter a monastic community. I suspect that Joseph probably knows that he's probably going to transition before he sees Yeshua again. It seems to me, I could be wrong, but it seems to me there's not going to be too many more interactions. He's going to bilocate back to Mount Carmel, and then he makes his transition before Yeshua gets back. Am I wrong? I think it's coming up, and that's
Well,
probably
I
tears.
really appreciate you just clarified for me what bilocating is. I did not know it was actually physical. So thank you. That really helped me to understand these passages because it seems like he's there in person and he didn't make the trip. But so that explains it. Thank you, Kat. That really did help me out a lot. And I'm sorry, your question, did anyone have any answers there or comments?
Cat's correct. It actually says that a little bit later, the
Hmm.
next paragraph.
Okay.
Little did I know then that my father Joseph would not be returning with me. So that you're correct.
Wow. Yeah. Well, we're running out of time. And Iona, if you don't mind, it's just one paragraph, but this is
Thank
where
you,
I
Anna.
first got introduced to Babaji. And it's written by Babaji and Yeshua. So it's really quite a paragraph. Okay.
Yes. It's
The
called,
introduction. Yeah.
yep. It's called The Way.
Yeah.
The way is the sacred, heroic, human journey in which you are the unknown path ahead. Let me say that again. The way is the sacred, heroic, human journey in which you are the unknown path ahead. You are the inquiring practices of self-realization, and you are the final destination from which you have never left. The way is a pilgrimage through form to remember that the Holy One, the living Master of light, the ever innocent one, abides within you as your true self, regardless of all phenomena and circumstance. It is a journey taken in the worlds of form to integrate every emotion and human experience that is necessary for you to one day stand before the throne of your I Am presence and pronounce yourself worthy of the immaculate, divine love that you have always been and always will be eternally. It's from Mahavatar Babaji, and Yeshua.
Wow. That was appropriate for what we've read tonight. Yeah. Our body is consciousness, and this journey, wow, is the way.
Could
Yeah.
could I ask what page that was on, Charla? In the Sophia Code, right?
Yep, it's before section 1. It's the page before section 1
Thank you.
starts. Yeah. But yes, the journey taken in the worlds of form. That's
Wow.
what we're doing. Taking
Yeah.
a journey.
We're breaking the boundaries that were given to maybe me, right? By the collective all my life. We're breaking the boundaries, and this is happening. The way is opening up. Wow. Because we're putting ourselves in front of it. Our willingness is allowing this truth enter into us. Wow. It's as simple as that. Our willingness. Wow. That was great. Thank you, Iona. That was beautiful. And we're running out of time, and we're going to have Catherine Ann end us up here tonight.
Okay. Just again, focusing in your heart. That is also an interdimensional portal. Individually, for you, as the sun is the interdimensional portal for the solar system. And in this place, experience the profound sacredness and gratitude of all that we are reading and sharing. And within this, allow your own self to experience Babaji and Yeshua integrated within your presence and your being, making themselves, their energy and their wisdom available to you. And should you so desire, give your permission to allow them to teach you in the higher levels, in the higher wisdom, and the greatest grace that can be brought forward at this time. And just know, should you accept this offering, that they will continue to work with you in your sleep state, in your meditations, and in your everyday walk on the planet. In gratitude and sacredness. So be it.
Thank you, Catherine Ann. That was beautiful. Yeah, you guys, this is my favorite time of the week. I hate to let it go. And I might not be available next week, but I'll be with you in spirit. And if I can get away, I will. I really love you all. And I'm glad we're taking this journey together this way. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.